So today we kick off with Nigerian Tribune as the first daily. And look at the lead story here. Senators query FG's borrowing. Tinubu's ministers justify plans. And the writer here says, President assures better economy as latest GDP report indicates growth, predicts 2025 rebasing of economy will bring prosperity. I wonder what you think of that one. The Daily Times this morning, Nigeria's GDP grows 3.46% in Q3 2024, boosted by services sector. And then Nigerian News Direct also focusing on the same narrative. Nigeria's GDP grows by 3.46% in Q3 2024, driven by services sector. So, it's the same narrative. The blueprint also on the GDP, it says with 3.46% GDP growth in Q3, Nigeria's economy on course, ascribed to the presidency. Then at the bottom strip, Port Harcourt Warri Refinery to be fully privatized, ascribed to the presidency. NUPRC confirms 1.8 million barrels per day NNPCL oil production figures. This Nigeria leads with why we oppose rising cases of violence against women, girls. Reps Speaker Abbas petitions IGP, leads colleagues on protest walk against GBV, gender-based violence. FG urges varsities to set up sexual assault referral units, the paper reports. At the bottom strip here, Shetima seeks adoption of tech-driven strategy to fight terrorism. Others, the paper reports as well here today. New Telegraph, Tinubu, Q3 GDP growth indicates recovery from reforms, unintended effects. How do you internalize that one? Well, you have to pick up the paper and see that. A mounting debt burden, we borrow based on your approvals. FG tackles NAS. So, now back and forth, it's what is reported there, which is published at the bottom strip of the paper this morning.
There you have it. Those are the papers that we're looking at this morning. But for me, I'm going to start off with the Vanguard newspaper. And that's because, lots of articles have come up after this story yesterday. Morning from page 5. I'm taking a look at page 5 myself. But the headline there from the Vanguard newspaper, GDP growth figures. More work needs to be done, according to the president. Welcoming this third quarter growth figure. Service sector drives Nigeria's GDP up by 3.46%. According to the National Bureau of Statistics. Oil, agri sectors, growth slows, and unemployment rate is falling by 4.3% in the second quarter of this year. And I said, those are the figures there. But there are many people who have written articles between last night and this morning talking about, in fact, I'm looking at one right now where they're talking about Nigeria's economic paradox. A growing GDP amidst widespread suffering. And the question, I think, in the minds of many people is when you give out these figures, in fact, this particular article, at least one of them that I'm reading, is from the CUPP, the Coalition of Political Parties. And they're saying basically that is it possible that these figures actually mask the actual problems on ground? Because you hear, we've grown, unemployment has reduced that, and the country is doing better in terms of its GDP. But how does that affect the Nigerian on the ground? Is it reflecting in our circumstances? Is it curing the widespread poverty? Is it removing the corruption that we have seen in so many sectors? It's a very interesting dynamic, really, between figures released and what is on ground. So are there indices that we need to be able to check? I think ultimately for the Nigerian person, it is the standard of my life, the quality of my life, the ability to afford things that matters to me. So when you're telling me that there's GDP growth or there's unemployment, these are great figures. It's wonderful. We have been praying for these things to happen. But we have to start thinking about how it impacts the common man, how we get the person on the street to believe that the policies of the government are directly impacting his pocket, directly impacting his spending power, his quality of life. So these are some of the things, you know, that have come up since this particular story came out. But let me not give you all of those details. You can get more from page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper, GDP growth figures. But the president is being clear, really, Chamberlain. He's saying that more work needs to be done, and that is work that we are watching to see how it unfolds in the days and months to come. The situation on ground is too tough. It's too tough
it means that
for the Nigerian person.
They won't just go with this figure just like that.
I don't think the Nigerian is going to just say, oh, unemployment has reduced and it's grown by 3-point-something%. That's wonderful. That means my life is fine now. It's uhuru. No, that's not how it works. For them, it is the practicality of what you're saying. So maybe people, you know, the government has to start thinking about how we can start seeing changes in the living standard of the Nigerian.
Well, I think those are part of the issues that we're going to be highlighting this morning. From what is the real scenario out there? Well, at what point do these figures meet reality? Perhaps put differently, how realistic are these figures? You know, so upon what do you predicate these figures? And so how should government themselves respond to these figures? Is government desperate for some good news such that they can hold tight to these figures and thumb their chest? Are these figures, you know, such that the veracity of these figures, you know, you can do a lot with figures, depending on what you're looking for, anyway, depending on your methodology. You can apply certain methods and get certain figures. Well, not that people are poo-pooing these figures, but perhaps that principle that works in the judiciary, where they say justice should not just be done, but it should be seen
to be done.
Maybe it should apply to some extent to this kind of statistics.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, this figure should not just.
I mean, I want to be able to. So this article by Peter Ahmed is the one that I'm actually going to read. He says it's alarming to see the stark contrast between the reported GDP growth and the harsh economic realities faced by Nigerians. The frequency of national grid collapses, potholes on the roads increased by 100%, while the value of the naira continues to depreciate. These statistics are a far cry from the rosy picture painted by the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, and I think that's where the issue is.
Because there are certain fundamentals.
Yes.
I mean, as we were told here yesterday by the farmer, who did say, look, no matter what they put out there, no matter the figures you put out there are certain basics about economics.
Absolutely.
If, as a farmer, I get to the farm, I get my produce, and I get to transport. If they hike transport, then I've got to hike the cost of my produce. There's
nothing you can do about it.
So
nothing you can. In fact, not to sell out our guest, but we were here with him for a long time after the program. You know, just talking with him because I like to go to the market, and this is market. Just for you out there, if you're shopping for Christmas, this is the time to do it. Do not wait till December hits. You will not be enjoying yourself, at least based on what our guest said yesterday. This is the time for you to start stocking up and getting ready for the Yuletide. But, one thing he said yesterday was, look, no matter what you say, no matter what indices you put out, no matter what meetings we're having, whatever it is that you're doing, as long as the cost of transportation goes up, I will hike the price of my product. There's nothing you can do about it.
So the big question then, can you relate with these figures? How do you relate with those figures? Look, whichever way you understand the question, just answer it. If you can, of course, we'd like to hear from you. But we've got the guys hanging in there, so we're going to be back in just a moment. Stay on with us.